Hi everyone, it's Mr. Random here, and I wanted to make this quick video to help out people who are having a problem with this. I myself had a problem with this, and I researched for maybe a good week, maybe two, on how to try and solve it. I found a lot of answers, I got a lot of help, everything was great and dandy like sugar and candy, but at the time that I was looking, maybe 6 months ago, maybe almost a year, I would say maybe about 6 months ago, less than a year, I could not find a video that exactly showed me how to port forward in PFSense, like the exact steps. I found a lot of stuff that technically said, hey, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, stuff like that. But I couldn't find one that exactly showed me how to do it with examples. So maybe they have made some more after that, or maybe they have some and I just couldn't find them. But I'm gonna make one and show you how to
Let me
do
show you how.
port forwarding. And the kind of port forwarding I'm going to do is, for example, if you're trying to port forward a server, let's say you have Apache running or Engine or something like Tomcat or something like that, and you're trying to port forward the HTTP ports or the any port really that you're trying to port forward into your firewall, around your firewall, stuff like that. I'm going to show you some examples. The first example I'm going to show you. Sorry about that background noise. It's hot in here, and it's Texas. It's like 100 and something, and my eyes are burning because of my allergies. Anyways, first example I want to show you is I have Nextcloud on my server, and Nextcloud is my personal cloud because I don't really trust Google and all of them. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, they're the best. Just give in to them. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear." Blah blah blah. It's not even about that. It's, you know what? I'm not gonna get political. But anyways, so I have my own stuff. Now the problem with having NetCloud is that it wants to use port 80 and port 443. So port 80 is HTTP and port 443 is HTTPS. Now the problem with that is that I already have an Apache server, and that Apache server is already using port 80 and port 443. So I run into a conflict. So what do? What do we do? Start freaking out. But don't panic. I'm going to show you what I did. So in the settings for NetCloud, I set it up so that it will expect communication from port 8080 for port 80 and communication from 443 as 4443. So what I ended up doing in the firewall settings is this. First, you want to create a new rule, and I'm going to start at the bottom real quick. The NAT reflection, I use right here is this use system default because I already set it up as my system default to use pure NAT as a blanket rule. It always does that. But if yours is not set up or you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, go ahead and pick one of these two. There's differences between the two, pros and cons for each one, but I always use pure NAT. It's up to you which one you want to use. That's your choice. Read up on it some more. I'm not going to go into that. That's a different video. But pick one of those two and go with it. So we'll start at the top now. So the interface is WAN, because it's your wide area network. Address family IPv4. Protocol is TCP, which is almost like 90% of the time, 99% of the time it is. This is what was getting me confused. Everybody always said the destination was WAN address, but what they meant by destination, it doesn't mean where the signals are going to. Like, for example, my Nextcloud in my internal network is 192.168.1.666 or whatever. I thought that would go there, you know, the WAN address, the destination. So I kept putting the wrong thing. I kept putting LAN address, and that was the wrong thing. But in reality, it was always WAN address. That's why I could never get it to work. And all the instructions I always read always said to use LAN address for this or da 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 for that, until finally I found somebody on Reddit who had helped me out. I wish I could remember who it was, and they sent me a message saying, hey, just try WAN address, and I did, and it worked. So it's WAN address, there's nothing there. Now the destination port, that is where the trigger is going to be. So for example, we want 8080 from the outside to go to 8080 inside, which will be 8080 outside
And you
to 8080 inside.
Get on it.
And the host, the redirect target IP is going to be a single host, and that's the IP for my true cloud or Nextcloud. So what's going to happen is whenever somebody outside goes to 8080, then they're going to go, the firewall is going to route them to HTTP, which is port 80 on this IP. I know it's confusing, but first we tell it what we want, because we want 8080 to 8080 because we just want one port. We could put a range here. We could put 8080 to 9000. That'd be silly because we don't want that. We just want 8080 to 8080, which is one port. This is the source where it's going to. Okay, that's the server where it's going to. That's the house it's going to. And this is where we want it to land, which is HTTP. That's a service. That's automatically port 80. The system already knows that. So all you gotta do is tell it, hey, I want you to go to HTTP. And that is port 80. Now let's say, for example, you don't have this drop down box for whatever reason, or using some other type of firewall. Then you could just hit other and type in the port yourself manually. 80. That's HTTP service. That's HTTP port. But since mine don't, can let me do that, I just tell it, hey, hit the HTTP port. It already knows. Now the description, you can add whatever you want as a description, but whenever I look at it really quickly, I already know. I'm like, what is this? What rule is this? This looks stupid. I'm like, oh, that's my Nextcloud HTTP 8080 rule. And like I said, the reflection, I use default, but if you don't know what this is or don't have it turned on, pick one of these two. And then hit save. You're gonna hit save, and it's gonna say at the top, do something. Watch, I'll show you. I'm not gonna hit the button, but apply changes, and that's it. It's one example. So I'm gonna go back. Now let's say some of you like to play Minecraft, which I kind of like to do. So I have a server for that. I have actually a few servers for that. So Minecraft by default uses port 25565. Don't ask me how I know that. That was a headache. So now my primary Minecraft server, this is what I did. This is an example again. Interface is WAN, IP address IP4, TCP. Again, WAN address here. Other. We're gonna trigger. This is where it triggers, right? So the WAN is equals the outside part of the firewall. That's the outside. That's outside of your house. Okay. That whenever somebody knocks, is the mailman's looking for 25565. Then they'll be like, hey, where's 25565? I'm looking for 25565 only. Then they're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is the address right here. This is where they're at. And he's gonna be like, oh, okay, cool. So here you go. So whenever an outside source hits this port from the outside, it's all the firewall is automatically going to send them to this IP at this port. Now, the reason I have other is because the firewall doesn't have like a saved Minecraft port in it. It's not that important. So I had to put it as other and then put the port number there. Labeled in Minecraft, save. Oh, and don't forget about your NAT thing. And then hit the thing up there, and that's it. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why the frack do you have more than one Minecraft server, and why do you have more than one port number there? Well, I have multiple Minecraft servers because I was testing things with plugins and things like that, and because FU, that's why. I was trying to make a joke. So, let me show you this here. Now, remember I said that the default port for Minecraft is 25565. So what I did, so I could have multiple servers, is I redirected ports. So again, the same settings here, but this time when I set up the Minecraft server, I told it to expect traffic on port 25564, so I changed the default. So in this example, anyone trying to reach from coming in from the outside of my network, which is called the WAN, is going to hit this port. My firewall knows that between this port and this port, which is 25564, it's going to send it to this server IP address in my inside network. Then it's going to go to port 25564. So I label that Minecraft as well because it's another server. Don't get confused by that. And then do the NAT reflection, hit save, and then do your thing up there. Now, I can show you how to do the changing the port on the Minecraft installation thing. Oh, that's going to be another video, so I'm not going to go over that right now. Now, I'm going to show you an example on how I did my web host, my web server. Because my web server took over priority of the original ports, I didn't, this is going to look a little different, but it's the normal way of doing it. That makes sense. So again, WAN, IP4, TCP, WAN address. So this time I can use HTTP. I don't have to use other because that's actually what I want. Anything that hits the legit HTTP port, which is 80, see the range, HTTP to HTTP, which is 80, is going to go to this server, this IP address, and then it's going to hit this port on that server, HTTP. It's really easy because that's what I want. So I give it description Apache, you know, did my thing there, even though it's defaulted, but you know, hit save. That was easy. And the same thing goes for the HTTPS, which is the encrypted part. And because it's a standard port, standard setup, again, I picked HTTPS as a service in the port to that same receiver, or I'll keep calling it receiver, to the same server and same port, which is HTTPS. And that's it. That's really easy. And it works. Now, to do remote desktoping, then it's similar situation. Now, if you're doing a remote desktop, I don't know what that was. A remote desktop, for example, Windows remote desktop uses port 3389 as default. The problem here is that I have different servers that I'm trying to get into. So, so what I have to do is forward, depending on what port I choose, will determine which server I go to. Does that make sense? Kind of? Okay. So let's see this, for example, I use my web address of www.random.com. If I type that in, it will, in a software that is for remote desktop, it will automatically input the IP, the port number of 3389 because that's just a standard. So let's say I wanted a remote desktop here, but using Windows remote desktop from my Windows desktop, it already knows to go to that port. I don't have to type it in. So I would just type in the IP address or the domain name, like www.mrrandom.com, in the remote desktop program. Boom, 3389, I'm in. But since I have multiple servers and each one I want to remote into, then I come into a problem there. So what I ended up doing is, for example, let's say this is my #1 server, this one here, because each one of these is going to have, there's 3 of them, each one has a remote desktop, each one is designated a port number for a remote desktop. So anytime I want to talk to this server, I'll always type in, you know, mrrandom.com, and then those 2 little dots, I forgot what they're called, colons, I think, I don't remember, but 2 little dots, and then the port number, and then my firewall knows to forward it to this IP. So I'm gonna show you the settings real quick. I know it's confusing. So let's say my domain name or the address that I'm gonna type into, let me show you here, remote desktop, I would put in mrrandom.com. If I hit enter, this program, remote desktop program, knows the default is 3389. It already knows that automatically. So it would take me to the server at the end of this address and start logging me in, you know, doing my thing. The problem that I run into, because I have multiple servers and I'm cheap, is I have to do a workaround for multiple remote desktops. So now let's say I wanted to get into this right here, this server that I'm looking at as an example, and I would type in those two little dots that I'll tell you about, then type in 9989 because that's the port I assigned to that server. Then my firewall says, hey, you know what? Somebody outside the WAN is knocking at 9989 port. I know to send it to this server down here, the 133. And that's going to go to the standard Microsoft Remote Desktop port. And I labeled it proxy for RDP. So that's as basic as it gets. Now this is a lot of information to swallow. I'm going kind of fast. It's just a quick video, but I think it'll help out a lot of you guys on how to do that. I am not a firewall expert, especially not a PFSense expert. I'm a beginner, but I have learned a lot in the past 6 months on it because I've set up servers all on here and things to protect my traffic and stuff like that. If you need help with that, let me know. Leave me a comment or go to my Discord. I'll put a link there so you can go and ask me stuff there, or maybe just hang out and play video games. I don't care. But that's it. It's a quick video. Have any questions? Leave them, whatever. Discord.
Please like and subscribe.